America used to be called the land of opportunity, not the land of fat people. When did this epidemic occur? In my multi-genre paper, I address the reason, the problem, and the cause of why America is fat. We are fat because of hunger. Hunger is you. Hunger is me. Hunger is starvation. Hunger is food. Hunger is everyone. In my paper, hunger is a man being interviewed. His interview is being turned into a documentary called The Enemy. What a perfect name for it. Food. Food is the enemy. Hunger is the enemy. Hunger takes Joe, the interviewer, through his plan to make America fat. First, Hunger presented a mission statement. Step number 1 is to alter ingredients in manufactured foods. Step number 2 is to increase technology and decrease physical activity by introducing video games to children. Step number 3 is to genetically alter the genes that contain specific diseases. All of these things are true in our world. So the first thing that Hunger tells us about is an anorexic high school girl that he met. He reads a poem that he wrote about the girl. This poem describes the internal battle that takes place in her head throughout her day. At the end of the day, Hunger finally won. This was just another day, although she hadn't won the fight. At last, the enemy had won, because she finally took a bite. Hunger then goes on to tell Joe about a textbook that he found on eating disorders. He shares the anorexia chapter with Joe, and then talks about how he wrote an article to go into the textbook on binge eating, because that is one of the disorders that he introduced to America. Next, Hunger tells about a girl that he met, which is me, who is participating in a very odd diet. He first shows Joe her grocery list, which consists of things like almonds, lettuce, avocados, coconut oil, and ghee. He was very curious, so he found the blog that she wrote following her 7 days on the diet. It turned out that the diet was called a keto/paleo diet. Hunger looked this up on the internet and found a diet review on it. In it, he learned all about the diet. He first shared with Joe a little history about ketosis. He said that ketosis was introduced to the U.S. in the 1920s. We know it now as a diet, but it was originally used for treating diseases like diabetes and epilepsy. It ended up not actually treating the diseases, but more so reducing the need for pharmaceutical treatment. It wasn't until the 60s when ketosis was used for dieting purposes. And according to Paulo in his 2013 article in the European Journal of Clinical Nutrition about low-carb diets, ketosis became widely known as one of the most common methods of obesity treatment. After his history on ketosis, Hunger went on to explain the scientific process of ketosis. Every diet always has a process, or should I say a goal. Some diets may be low fat, others low protein, and some even just no processed food. According to Christian Nordquist in his 2014 article from the Medical News Today, titled "What are carbohydrates? What is glucose?" The goal of ketosis is to keep the amount of consumed calories below 50 grams per day. Essentially, monosaccharides, which is fructose and glucose, that you receive during the day from carbohydrates, as well as the disaccharides, which is sucrose, lactose, and maltose, and polysaccharides, which is the polymers, are the sources of energy for your body. So when you decrease your intake of carbohydrates so drastically, the amount of energy taken into your central nervous system also decreases. According to Paulo, once again in his 2013 article in the European Journal of Clinical Nutrition about low-carb diets, the CNS cannot use fat as an energy source, hence it normally utilizes glucose. Your body will have about 3 or 4 days to find an alternative source of energy. The transferring of sources of energy leads to the production of higher than normal levels of so-called ketone bodies. That is, acetoacetate, B-hydroxybutyric acid, and acetone, a process called ketogenesis. After the ketone bodies are taken through ketogenesis, they are able to supply your body with more energy than the glucose ever could. This is the explanation as to why people that follow ketosis claim to have more energy during the diet than before. During these 3 to 4 days when the body is transferring energy, you can develop the keto flu. It is a result of literally not having any energy in the body. Your central nervous system is running low and hasn't found more energy to make up for the energy lost. According to Simons in his article in the Principia Ketogenica, titled Very Low Carbohydrate and Ketogenic Diet Studies, some symptoms of the keto flu are an upset stomach, headache, dizziness, cramping, and insomnia. Once your body is able to adapt to its new energy source, the keto flu will disappear. Hunger told of a brief overview on the paleo part of the diet as well. According to Ann Gibbons in her 2014 National Geographic article titled The Evolution of Diet, a paleo diet follows the diet of cavemen that lived in the Paleolithic era. Cavemen were typically fishers, hunters, and gatherers. For that reason, the diet consists of a large quantity of meats, nuts, berries, and vegetables. You aren't allowed to eat any dairy or grain because they aren't foods that a caveman would have eaten. According to Johnny Bowden in his 2015 Amazing Wellness article titled Paleo Diet Myths, there is an array of controversy over the paleo belief that beans or legumes cause inflammation. This explains why they are not included in the diet. So after Hunger got done explaining the keto/paleo diet, Joe asked him for one more experience. Hunger decided to share a letter that was written to the Department of Education and the Department of Agriculture by a young lady named Heather Yang. Hunger claimed that she was one of the few Americans to really fight back against his plan. Department of Education and Department of Agriculture. The other day, I became aware of the amount of fat people in this world. I asked myself, when did this epidemic occur? America used to be called the land of opportunity, not the land of fat people. Many people spend time trying to figure out what is causing this so-called epidemic. Maybe we should consider trying to figure out how to fix it. People try everything to lose weight, even if it means putting their body in life-threatening danger. The diet craze in America is insane right now. There's the protein diet, the paleo diet, the vegetarian diet, or even the tapeworm diet. Then you have people that try to exercise. Keyword, try. They start out great, but then eventually lose fuel and end up back to their old lazy habits. Obviously, none of this is working for the great percentage of Americans that are obese. I have finally found a solution that will put this overwhelming epidemic to rest. When we think of obesity or being overweight, it is not likely for us to think of children, but rather adults. We don't just reach a certain age and magically become fat. In fact, 31.8% of young people ages 2 to 19 are considered either obese or overweight. The problem is starting at a young age, and that is where it should be addressed. What I am about to propose could change the future of our kids, grandkids, and possibly the world. Parents are to blame for most of our weight problems in children. They feed their kids an enormous amount of sugar and junk. Getting kids away from their parents and into a safe and healthy environment is really the best decision. When kids reach school age, they should be tested before they are allowed into a normal public elementary school. This test would be no ordinary knowledge test, but rather a fitness test, as the United States focuses way too much on academic test scores. Each child will continue to test year after year. The difficulty of the test will correlate positively with each grade. You may ask, what do we do with all the children that do not pass? The answer to that question is actually quite simple. The government should provide each state, depending on population, with special schools for these fat kids. These schools would consist of morning, afternoon, and night exercise routines. Each class would, in some way, shape, or form, be focused around nutrition/healthy eating, food science, and exercise. At the beginning of the year, each child will take the fitness test once again. If they pass the fitness test with the required standards, they will be released back to a normal public school and forced to catch up on what they missed while they were away. If a child does not pass the fitness test at the end of the year, he or she would obviously return to complete another year of the program. Once the system is put into place, America will merely have to wait for the baby boomers to pass, and then the United States would slowly decrease its obesity rate and descend the line of obese countries. These fit facilities would not only help us to decrease the obesity rate, but also provide jobs for many people. This would definitely be a reward for healthy adults, as they would be the only ones allowed to teach in the special schools. I do hope that you will consider my thoughts and ideas on this matter. I truly believe that this system would help to change the future face and well-being of America. With the help of both of your departments, together, you could make a difference. Save the fat children. Sincerely, Heather Yang. Joe was absolutely frustrated by the end of the interview. He didn't know how one man could cause so much hurt to the world. Joe even tried showing Hunger's statistics. Nothing would work. Hunger ended the interview by saying, "Nobody has ever come close to defeating me, and nobody ever will."